This is the crypto market, and the crypto market right now is showing some volatility. If you look at what's happening, it does make sense because markets never like uncertainty. And it's not only that, this kind of stuff add to that fear where people are quickly moving out, they are in panic, all that happens. And then you see this and you're like, okay, if people are running out, they are really making this stuff up like withdrawal fee towards $100. And that does not actually look great if you are in this point of view or even looking at the greater picture. Now, before this happened, we had our thought process for that asset like 2 months before that. But it was completely technical. But right now, the fundamental scenario is also changing. And when you are looking at how things are evolving, people are moving out of that one. So you need to ask that question like, are you in that fear? This one, are you moving out? And if you want to, then you may have to do it as fast as possible and pay this fee. Because the market volatility always happens, and I'm looking at this in various different perspectives. And I'm like, okay, that does not actually look good. Because as I've talked here, this can be another Luna or Celsius events, right? If you remember how they turned out, it was like this. It was going up, 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 and around $100 we were talking about this, right? It can drop, and then Celsius. So these actually gave you a pattern and then broke the support. But right now, if you're looking at FTT, you're like, okay, this does show you a pattern, but the support is still holding. So right now, if you're going to look at that asset and then ask that question like, what the hell is happening? Yes, the price action is volatile. You are dropping. So the question primarily which I'm receiving right now is another Luna type of crash coming in. That's a huge possibility. You cannot neglect that one looking at how things are evolving. But the way we look at the market right now, it's a little bit different. You had a support and it's a short and medium term support. Right now, someone is buying. Say if we are looking at the volume, you can clearly get that idea. Okay, we got a load of selling volume. Then even before the candle started, you got a lot of buying volume coming in. So I'm like, who is buying all these units which others are dumping? Now, you also need to understand on the other side, it's CZ Binance saying, okay, we have this much, which is a big amount, which we'll have to slowly put into the market, and they'll do it in a way it may not impact the market. But do you really think it's not going to impact the market much? Just that one statement will have fear coming in for all of us. But now, yes, we will have to think like, okay, my asset is in XRP, not in that particular coin. Will that impact me? What's XRP doing now? What is the entire market doing? Are we looking at a fall all the way down? That is the fear right now in the market. So looking at the pattern for the general market and asking the question, where are people moving right now, makes a lot of sense. Because right now, if you are looking here on a daily, a lot of people are slowly moving on towards these stable coins. You can see the uptick happening in these stable coins. Now, some of the assets do give that perspective like, okay, we are still holding. Some are still interested in that asset and it's being bought back up. So that's a good news for few assets, not for the entire market, but we'll have to break it through and see how things are evolving. This is the scientific investor family, where the normal, common retail guys learn how to become the next top 10% of the world. Yes, short term, you are seeing a lot of movement, price moving up, down, doing a lot of different issues. But, if you look at that, last day, we happened to do this. We were actually trying to rebalance between some of the assets which were showing some kind of slowdown, and we were taking profits from some of our trades which we happened to start like a month, 2 months before. Most of these are like 20 to 40, 50 days, and for me, being around 20 to 40% in that 40 days is kind of actually a good return. Now, the market does show you a lot of confusing indicators. Sometimes you will have to decide whether you are going to take that amount of risk or you are going to take the profit and try and rebalance it in a way that your impact, if that red signal which flashed, which happens, if that happens, your impact is minimal. Instead of dropping 30-40%, you may drop 5 to 10%. For me, that's a better choice, and that's why I had to go for it. I usually don't do these kind of short-term rebalancing. Mostly we do medium to long-term rebalancing, but we never do these kind of short-term. But right now, when I'm looking at that, okay, other assets which we did very great, and then we had to move into different coins which we think will hold and bounce from here, right? And that right now is looking okay. Because if you are looking at the other side of the market, you do see assets dropping 10%, 9%, 7%. So you're getting close towards the top. That's like, okay, if a panic comes in, these assets may get even more volatility. Now we'll have to see like how these are being volatile, because some are a macro support, it's dropping, agreed, but some of these are at a macro support. So if you are at a support and you're starting to bounce, that does mean if you are in that asset, you can average down and make that profit. Fine. Now if you don't know where the support is, now that's going to be the hard part. Say this is FTX, which we are all looking at the moment, to understand if the next black swan event like Luna is coming in to crush the crypto market, right? So when we plot this one, we do see a trend line to the downside and we broke that to the upside. This can be a retest event, because now the question becomes like, will Sam actually buy back all these units to hold the institution? If you remember, that was one of our biggest questions when we talked about this. The positive stuff is that Sam has billions to support the project, if required, right? But then on the other side, we also think like, okay, can he really put that wall against the market if the market panics and run out? That is a confusion. But back then, we were like, okay, we are slowly bouncing. We don't know how much momentum we get. But right now, if we are looking at the market after 2 months, I'm like, okay, we were here at the bottom. We were coming to the downside during that time, right? August, end of August. But right now we made a base and we are breaking back to the upside. So I'm like a little bit positive here. The market may not go that much in panic. And if it's a retest and a bounce, whales, institutional guys, they may come in and buy. So yes, you will see volatility for sure. For some of that, movements will be opportunities. For some, it's panic, it's dropping 5%, 10% a day, and that's hurting. Fine. But if you look at this in 10, 20, 30, 60 days, you're like, okay, this is a drop after the coins moved up last 10, 20 days. We don't expect the market to run higher all the way every day. We do know that they will correct at some point. Fine. And these corrections can be used. Say if we are looking at this particular asset, we've been looking at this from some time. We've been trading this, taking profits and all. And as we talked, this was one of that area we were taking profits. We rebalanced, we re-entered, we were doing different stuffs. But what's really important here is that you broke higher. And that's a medium-term level. You need to understand that's like from the early 2022 or late 2021, this level is valid. Now we are printing a pattern in such a direction, right? So that's for Chile is great. Now, primarily if you are an XRP holder here and you're looking at XRP asking like, okay, I understand the different assets are doing that. What about my asset XRP, right? XRP is the primary single biggest asset for me. So, I look at this more often. And I'm asking that same question to myself, like, what is the pattern which is evolving here from that time frame, like last 1.5 years? It's been trending inside this pattern. You can all see that. And most of the time, as we started correcting from November, December of last year, we've been trending below all these moving averages. If you are zooming in and looking at this, you can clearly watch that. It's the 20, 50, and 200-day moving average, which we're pushing the price to the downside. Whenever the price comes, touch that one. Great. But right now, what's interesting for me observing this market is that, okay, the price is trying to make these moving averages as support rather than a resistance. Last times, when you were coming back to the upside, you can note it here, it was a resistance. Again, 200-day moving average here acted as a resistance. Then again, here it was a resistance. So now, if you are getting this as a support, you may bounce, and that bounce can literally enter as a breakout in the market. Now, do we like that? Of course. I mean, no doubt that we'll all enjoy if the price bounces like that. So the next question is like the short-term support. You now looked at last 1-2 year and you are like, okay, I do understand there is a level of support, but what's the short-term possibility? Like, no one can assure you this is going to happen, but you're looking at the odds. And right now it does show you like, okay, we discussed about this even last day, right? If we are going to drop, we are going to drop to this level. So that's one support. Now, most likely people usually just use a line. But if you are going in depth, now we are looking at a zone because you need to actually understand the standard deviations, where was the last support and resistance. So now if you are doing that here, it makes sense. If you observe this one, these two or three actually, is the standard deviation. So if you put the line there at the bottom and make it horizontal, you'll see something like this at the bottom. And then you go on top to see what's the upside. And this acts as an upside. So here on a short term, this is the range of support which you're observing. And we are right now at the bottom of that one. So if you are just taking one line, your support broke and you are going completely bearish. But if you are looking at the zone, right now you're like, okay, we are still inside that zone. We need to bounce off. And if we do bounce, that's a positive trend. But how long can that exist in the market? If you are bouncing there, now we will say, okay, we argue that we will have to hit 0.52 and break that level. If not, that's going to reject us and we are going to come back down, right? So that's a short-term scenario. This is a 4-hour chart. So it depends on your horizon. If you are here looking at next 1 year, 2 year, that kind of a time frame, you do understand that falling channels in general give you a higher odds of breaking higher. That's a normal common stuff. And when you are in a channel, usually that's a corrective trend. Then you're going macro. You're like, okay, this is a cup and handle pattern. There is a huge possibility this can break higher. So all of that being taken into this picture, and you're asking, okay, I do get that point. But we do understand like Bitcoin is what the market tried to follow. And right now, to get a bit more clarity, you can say, okay, this is the previous support resistance. If we are able to bounce from here, that's a good news. But note that the moving average, the 21, is still here at 20,000. And the price is now close to 21. So on a short-term basis, you can argue that we may come back a little bit lower. That still is a possibility. You cannot actually completely put that perspective and say this is going to happen for 100%, but you can see like, okay, there is a trend line which is evolving and you may come back, retest and bounce. That cannot be neglected. But if you are in the market, what does this actually mean for you? This is a new trend trying to start and evolve. Why is that? Because if you look at this base and put that here, you will also observe that this was respected. Not exactly, but on that range and zone, it was respected. It broke about, retested and bounced. So if we get this now, it's positive, it's okay, but the momentum is decreasing. This one moved all the way from 19 towards 21. But after that, from 20, you move to 21, just above that, barely, right? So your momentum to the upside is slowing down. Why? Because it does show you like we are in an accumulation pattern, right? So unless you break this level and show that we are going towards a markup phase, expecting higher momentum is going to be hard. So that's when you come on looking at the altcoin market and asking that same question like, okay, in the same time horizon, what am I looking at? Are we close to the support or are we close to the resistance? That's what matters, right? And then we come on to the conclusion and say like, okay, we do think like we are in the midway, right? We are here. The top, the big resistance up here is $2,000 and the major support comes at 1,200. So right now being at 1,600 or close to that, you are really at the midpoint and you are seeing like, okay, the price may come back a little bit down. The way it is moving, it can bounce. That's a good news. But on the daily, the MACD shows like I'm cooling off. So if the MACD bounces from here, that's a good news. Now, what do you want to observe in the RSI on a positive note? Coming back down here and bouncing. So it does show like either you're going to slow down for 2-3 days or you're going to drop 1 or 2 days to the downside until this reach here. And RSI maintaining above 50 is the bullish scenario. If RSI go below that, it actually slows down the price. So now on the macro stuff, you're coming back up on the macro and you're looking at this and saying, yes, it broke higher. We do understand that point, but we need to hold onto that breakout. I'll say that's more important in the market because you will see a lot of volatility like this where assets are dropping in double digits and you're getting confused where these are. Some of these are at support. Some of them broke the support. So that's a huge thing for you to understand where the volatility is moving, right? Even if you're looking at the coins like say Dent, it used to be a high risk token. Right now it's dropping like the average in the market. 5-6% today as the drop is the average, which is actually a positive news for that asset. It's not dropping 10-20% like a lot of others in the other side of the spectrum. So that's positive news, right? So when we are trying to combine all this and look at a portfolio, now you're asking like, what's my risk balance? Am I heavily in risk side or am I completely in the fundamental side? Because right now, the way the market is moving, there is a lot to be known, right? Fundamentals, say, Darren actually put this one out and I'm like, okay, that's actually a great info. If you are looking at Yes Bank, Mahindra, ICICI, we've seen that before, right? But HDFC for me is actually a thing new. And in that perspective, I'm like, okay, this is something really good. All of these are like, we are already in a digital platform where we do all these transfers and that happens like instant. So they may be able to give that foundation something. And if you're saying crypto is volatile, this is how the stock market looks like. And when you go look at the stock, say this is Facebook, Meta, 77% down, and this is a monthly chart. The momentum to the downside is huge. Remember, when the price was up, Mark was like $139, $140 billion. Right now, he's like maybe 40. So that's the volatility. But understand, in 2 to 5 years' time, when people come back into the platform, start using the platform, slowly it will start to go back up. These kind of volatility usually happens because if you are looking at different platforms asking like, okay, are you spending more time on Facebook? Are you going to buy more of Apple products? These are the big question out there. In the stock market, you look at the sales, if that's a product or service in the other side. But in the crypto market, you don't have that. What you have to look at is this, the fundamentals. And I anticipate like, okay, these are like 1 + 1. And I think that's 2. You don't have to go and say, okay, oh, no, that's going to be 3. That's the hard part. Because whenever you're looking at all this and you're coming up with like, okay, I see Ripple, I see Stellar, I see Circle, it's actually easy way of saying, okay, there is a huge possibility these can play a central role in the coming central bank digital currency arena. And we may not know that, but these big guys, they do know that. Now you do see, meme coins, they up with Bitcoin or XRP or even Solana with a lot of network outages. You have XRP for payments and they don't go off. And you also have institutions supporting Solana where they do go off time to time. But these kind of volatility on the short-term scenario may come into the market, but it may actually bring you more opportunity because the dollar is slowing down. It's been doing that from some time and we are observing that. And if we do move all the way down here, dollar slows down, that's going to be the real great area for crypto. You look at all these time when dollar was at the peak, dropping from there, crypto was going up. Either you can say this time it's different or you will stand there and say, okay, I'm going to watch this opportunity and I'm going to take benefit of this one. So if you're looking for these breakouts, movements where we are entering, where we are exiting and all, you can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. So that's it, guys. If you received value, please do hit that like and subscribe button. I'll meet you on the next video. Bye-bye.